Blackwood Estate was the perfect setting for Shadows in the Dark, a modest horror film that promised to kickstart my career. With its eerie reputation of curses, strange lights, and vanished owners, it offered the ideal backdrop. Our director, Mark Vale, greeted our small crew with his usual enthusiasm, calling us a dedicated family ready to create something unforgettable. That evening, Mark quickly set to work, eager to capture the estate's eerie atmosphere. As the sun set, the crimson light bathed the facade, casting long shadows on the ivy-clayed walls. The dark windows seemed to watch us as we moved indoors to film the grand staircase. The flickering chandelier and intricate woodwork set a chilling tone, and while excitement buzzed, an unsettling feeling lingered just beneath the surface. Things took a strange turn that night. The chandelier flickered and went out, followed by a loud crash upstairs. We rushed up to find an empty hallway, the chairs undisturbed. Mark dismissed it as old house noises, but the eerie echo heightened our unease. The next morning, Sophie was missing. Her door was locked, and her belongings untouched. We searched the mansion, even the musty basement, where we found her makeup box, its contents scattered. Tension grew as Mark called the authorities, but they suggested Sophie might have left on her own. On day 2, Avery disappeared. He had been setting up a special effect in the dilapidated kitchen, a trickle of dark liquid dripping from pipes. When Greg stopped by for a sound check, he found Avery's gear strewn about on the floor. Half-empty containers of thick fake blood, a missing pump, and footprints leading nowhere. With Sophie still missing, tensions skyrocketed. Mark demanded we focus on production, but his voice trembled. Marissa nearly walked off set, only to have Mark beg her to remain. The film was already behind schedule. 2 people gone so quickly felt impossible to ignore. Nobody spoke the word curse, but we all sensed it. Blackwood Estate seemed to swallow people. That night, storms ravaged the area, rattling the old windows. We huddled in the estate's formal dining room, nursing cups of coffee under guttering candles. Greg mentioned hearing an odd whisper through his headset whenever he tested audio. At first, he thought it was interference, but it persisted. Colette sat in a corner, arms folded, face unreadable. As thunder shook the walls, she quietly observed us with a strange composure. Mark forced a smile, asking if we believed in the supernatural. Everyone wore forced grins, half expecting the walls to answer. Instead, the gloom pressed closer. By dawn of day 3, Greg vanished. We found his microphone rig in the entryway, near the imposing front door. The deadbolt was locked from the inside, meaning he should have been somewhere on the premises. In shock, Marissa sat on the main staircase, trembling. She whispered that something evil in the house was targeting us. I felt the same dread creeping into my bones, recalling local stories of cursed ground, restless spirits, and unexplainable vanishings. But Mark refused to call an official halt. He promised to wrap within 2 more days if we stuck to a heavily revised script. "We can't abandon the shoot now," he insisted, though his eyes darted about like a trapped animal. He assigned me to watch Marissa while he scrambled to film whatever coverage he could. We staged a crucial scene in the grand ballroom, a cavernous space with cracked mirrors. According to the revised script, Marissa's character would sense a malignant presence. Mark insisted we push chairs aside and drape the windows for moody lighting. Colette helped adjust the overhead lights, her expression as neutral as ever. Elijah settled his camera on a tripod, focusing on Marissa. Halfway through her monologue, a door slammed somewhere, echoing through the estate like a gunshot. Marissa faltered, eyes wide with panic, but Mark implored her to continue. As she resumed, the overhead lights blinked. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of Colette watching from behind a dusty curtain, her face illuminated by a flickering bulb, expression curiously cold. A chill crawled down my spine, though I blamed the draft. Later that evening, Marissa vanished. She'd gone to rehearse lines alone in an upstairs bedroom. I heard a shriek and sprinted up, only to find a broken lamp, her script scattered, and no sign of her. The window was sealed shut. My screams drew Mark and Elijah, who stared in disbelief. 4 people missing in less than 3 days. Blackwood felt alive, as though it fed on fear. Mark finally relented, saying we had to escape. We rushed to the front doors, only to discover them boarded up from the outside. Confusion turned to horror as we tried the side entrances, each similarly barred. We scrambled to break a window, only to find them secured with fresh nails. Someone had locked us in. That night, we barricaded ourselves in the estate's smallest bedroom. Mark paced, borderline delirious. Elijah's hands shook, still clutching his camera. Colette sat on the edge of a narrow bed, silent and unnervingly calm. I confronted Mark, demanding to know if he or the caretaker was behind this twisted scenario. He looked affronted. "I'd never endanger my crew," he insisted, voice cracking. Despair rippled through the room. We decided to attempt an escape at first light, hoping to pry loose one of the nailed windows upstairs. Exhaustion overcame us, and we drifted into fitful sleep. I awoke to scuffling noises in the corridor. Mark was on the floor, dazed, his forehead smeared with blood. Elijah and Colette were gone. Mark rasped out that Elijah suspected Colette of something awful. She had left quietly, and he followed. When Mark tried to stop them, someone struck them. Heart pounding, I helped him up, and we staggered into the hallway, guided by faint sounds. Tracing them down a spiral staircase, we reached a dank cellar that stank of old mold. A single lantern flickered along the wall. Heart pounding, I helped him up, and we stumbled into the dim hallway, our breaths shallow and panicked. The faint sound of creaking wood and distant whispers seemed to echo all around us. As we turned a corner, the air grew heavy, and a chill ran down my spine. That's when we saw it. The ghost of the mansion itself, an eerie, translucent form that seemed to emerge from the shadows. Its hollow eyes bore into ours, and the oppressive weight of its presence froze us in place. The walls began to tremble, and the floor beneath us groaned as though the entire structure were alive. Pieces of broken furniture slid across the floor, blocking our path. The ghost raised a spectral hand, and the hallway behind us seemed to collapse inward, cutting off our retreat. The walls shook violently, cracks forming in the plaster, while dust and debris rained down from the ceiling. Desperation surged through us. We darted into another room, narrowly dodging a falling beam as the mansion seemed to close in around us. Inside the room, we frantically searched for a way out. The ghost's presence was everywhere. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, and an unearthly moaning filled the air. Just as we thought the room would become our tomb, I noticed a faint draft near a rotting cabinet. Pushing it aside revealed a narrow passageway, its door nearly hidden beneath layers of grime. We didn't hesitate. Throwing our weight against the rusted hinges, we forced the door open and stumbled into the overgrown garden outside. The first rays of dawn greeted us like a lifeline, and we ran until the mansion was nothing but a dark silhouette in the distance. Though we had escaped its walls, the ghostly presence of the house lingered in my mind. Its haunting aura, and the chaos we witnessed, would forever mark the night we came face to face with the darkness of Blackwood. And moral of the story is, when encountering the unknown, respect the past and its lingering spirits. Some things are better left undisturbed, for the dead may not rest in peace.